Hi, and welcome to Habits for Humans, the podcast that explores what makes people tick and how to program this brain of ours to do what we want it to do. I'm your host, Kim Flynn, and today we're going to talk to Ryan Quilter, and it's going to be a real treat for you. I know it's a treat for me as well. I talked with Ryan before this podcast, and we got into like the nitty gritty of his life, and I'm so honored to present him to you today because he's one of those rare souls who goes there, who truly says, this is the truth about what it's like to be human. This is the truth about what it's like to be me as a human. And he's going to share all the details of his life. And we're going to talk about mindset, the power that it has over over our lives. He's going to talk about struggling with depression, horrendous self-esteem, self-hate, negative self-talk, and how he had to pull out of that through a lot of different things. And he's going to share those things with us. But the core of what I want to talk to him about is he was in a toxic relationship. And his stand is you can't have both a relationship with a spouse that is not working and mental health. I think sometimes we think that we can magically, as long as we are, and I'll speak for myself maybe, as long as I am this amazing person who meditates and becomes the Buddha himself, if I can do that, then I can make any relationship work. And Ryan is here to say, no, that's not the truth. So I'm really excited to talk to him today and get into, all the good stuff, depression, self-hate, toxic relationships, all the good stuff. So we have giveaways for our listeners at the end. If you like free stuff, stay tuned to the end. I know Ryan has an offer for you, as well as our sponsor, Card Salad, has an offer for you. So first, a word from our sponsor. Habits for Humans is brought to you by Card Salad. It's a health and wellness company that teaches you how to program your brain using systems and habits. Their flagship product is Eat Well. It's a menu planning system that has a menu board that you hang on your fridge, and recipes come with done-for-you shopping lists. And then it comes with a habit stacking program so you can start to build the habit of cooking for yourself and for your family every day. Their next product they're coming out with now is called Clean Well, which is a family cleaning and adventure game. So stay tuned for that and how to get free stuff from them at the end of the program today. So I'm so excited to introduce Ryan. Ryan has been a health coach and trainer for more than 8 years, and during that time has trained more than 2,000 clients. His passion is helping others create a sustainable change in their life, and he does this through helping his clients understand the mindset. There's that mindset word again, the mindset and psychology behind their behaviors. He has a wonderful wife, Ashley, and 3 amazing kids. And I read this, Ryan, I have to ask you about it. One of his kids has a viral reel on Instagram with 5.3 million views. What's the reel? What's the Instagram post that has 5.3 million views?
Yes, that's a great question. So that's our youngest, Camden. She's almost 2 years old now. Luckily, we have a Ring camera in the backyard to catch this. Grandma, my mom, was watching her, and so she does not like that she's in the viral reel. But what it was is she is a climber, loves to climb, is into lots of different things. And the stroller was out back on the back patio. She'd climbed up on the stroller, which she gets up on there all the time. She leaned forward and grabbed the handlebars and let go and swung down almost like she was on the high bar, and her feet swung up and she just hung on for dear life and landed perfectly. And it was almost like an Olympic landing. And so, yeah, 5.3 million views on that one. And Grandma was right there and obviously came running to the rescue, which once again, she doesn't like being in the reel. But yeah, that's the viral reel that little Camden has.
Okay, so we need to see that. I'm going to ask you for that link and we're going to put it in the show notes. Okay, so we need to share this, this crazy reel. All right, so we always start the podcast with your number one habit to manage your own mental wellness. And Ryan, you know all about this. What is the one daily practice that you'd recommend to manage the stress of daily life?
I would have to say the one daily practice would be some form of either meditation and or breath work. That has been instrumental in changing my life. We talked a little bit about like the depression and self-hate, and meditation was the first thing that really started to clear my head and really helped me see my own worth and connect me with a higher power. And then along with that, breath work. Even now, if I'm in a funk, if I've already meditated but I'm still just in a funk, I'm not feeling good, doing different kinds of breath work really really helps. So one or more of those, meditation and or breath work, I would have to say is the number one. Breath is life. It's the number one thing to keep your head in a good, healthy space.
I love it. So, without further ado, let's dive into your story. It takes someone really brave to say, yes, I struggle with not only depression, that one's easier to admit, but I struggled with self hate. I struggled with suicidal ideation. Will you talk to us about your story and how you got there?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's a very vulnerable topic to talk about, but the people that helped me most in my life with this very issue were the ones that were willing to open up and be raw, open, honest, and vulnerable about this. And so that's why I do this. It's in the hope that if I can help somebody else that's in a similar situation or hits that situation, that I might be able to say one thing that just helps, give them that little glimpse of light. And so low self esteem was something I'd always had. I can remember from elementary, junior high, just always feeling less than, walking into classrooms, wishing I was as smart as everyone else, just kind of trying to be as unnoticed as I possibly could. And so low self esteem is where it started. And that's about where it started. And then as we got further along, that's where it started to turn into more of a depression.
Okay, so quick question. So I don't think I've ever met anyone who didn't have low self-esteem as a kid, especially man, seventh grade was my low of all lows, right? I think everyone has that. When is it just every day, like you're in junior high, so therefore life sucks versus a real issue?
That's a great question. I would say it becomes a real issue when it goes to the bodily harm, the not wanting to be here. For me, I'm a burden to the world. I'm a burden to my family. I'm a burden to the people around me. That's what it was for me. A lot of people think that low self esteem and depression is due to, oh, the world around me is so horrible. I want to get out of this world. And that's where the suicidal thoughts come from. I'm the exact opposite. I've never thought that. All of my suicidal thoughts, horrible thoughts have come from I'm a horrible person. I'm amounting to nothing. I'm failing at everything. I'm a cancer to this world. And the longer that I'm here, the more it's going to spread, the more people I'm going to spread that cancer to. And I am literally doing the world a service by removing myself from this world, like cutting a
Wow.
cancer out. So I would say at that point, and you don't have to get to there, but it's where for me it would have been recognizing I feel like I'm a burden to every single thing and person around me, and those things would be better off without me. Having me removed, they would be better off. I would say that's where you go from like low self esteem to a more serious depression, something you want to look into.
Man, that breaks my heart just hearing that and knowing that, people I know walk around every day thinking, what are your words? I am a cancer to the world, and me just being here is spreading to other people. That is so heartbreaking. So, how did you start to pull out of that really low place?
I got a really good therapist. That's what it was. Is she just really helped me pull my head out of my rear and somehow was able to help me see my own worth because I had actually gone to multiple counselors, multiple therapists before, and they would tell me the exact same things. And they would tell me, Ryan, you have worth, Ryan, Ryan, Ryan. But the difference was these were all people that I had known, and I felt like they're biased. They're going to say that. They've known me since I was a little kid. I have the good guy complex. Of course, they're going to say those things. This therapist was somebody that didn't know me. It was just a recommendation, somebody I went to, and to hear somebody that was totally neutral, that I felt like didn't have any skin in the game for me as a person to say those things and to see those things and to see the toxic habits and patterns that I had and really helped me see my worth. That was huge. So number one was that therapist. Number two, the book that really, and this is, I used to hate reading until I read this book, and now I'm obsessed with reading because I realize how much knowledge and good things are in books, is Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It
Hmm.
by, I'm going to butcher his name, but I think his name is Raval. I'm not even going to try. Anyways, he has a kind of a off name, but Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It. That one really, really helped me because he tells his story about his depression and where he was at. And he was losing his business and had lost a friend and all these different things and what he did to come out of that. And so I started to take the things that he did and do them in my life. And some of them made me so, so uncomfortable. Like sitting and meditating is one thing, but one of the practices he has you do is go stand in front of the mirror, look yourself in the eye, set a timer. I think he tells you to do it for 2 minutes and tell yourself, I love myself. I love myself. I love myself. And to our listeners, this can kind of gauge where you're at on your self-love spectrum is if you were to walk in front of the mirror, and I work primarily with women, here in my coaching business, and I'll talk about this with them. Like, if you were to walk in front of the mirror, look yourself in the eye, and say, I love myself, what kind of feelings would that create? For most women, they say, oh, I would just like, ugh, that would be so hard for me to do. But I said, but what if you went and stood in front of the mirror and you said, I want you to tell me everything you hate about yourself? Rip yourself down. Most of them are like, oh, yeah, I do that every day.
Oh, that's so heartbreaking. Yes.
It is, and we don't say it out loud all the time, but we're saying it in our mind. And so that was one of the first things I started to do, and it just challenged. I mean, it made me so uncomfortable. My chest was tight, as I would say. I was so nervous about being caught doing it, and I would never think that I'd be on a podcast talking that me as a man that lifts heavy weights goes and does these things. But those things started to change my life, to literally rewire my brain and help me to see that I do have worth. I am meant here to be in this world. I do have a mission, and I'm not a cancer. I'm
Oh,
here to make an impact.
I love that. I love that. Talk to us about the relationship that you were in. You said it's a toxic relationship, and I'm so interested in the principle that you couldn't get healthy in your life until you exited that relationship. Is that what you're saying? And tell us about that.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. So the therapist that I referred to earlier, she was actually a marriage therapist that we had been referred to. So I went there with my ex-wife. And before I go down this rabbit hole, I always like to say my ex-wife, she's a great person. She's a good person. I am never going to rip anyone down because we all have our issues. She had her issues. I had my issues. I still have my issues. But I came into the marriage with my issues that only made my issues worse and created a very toxic relationship. Like, it just was not good. So that therapist really helped me.
I just have to say really quickly, thank you for honoring the people in your life. Even if the relationship between you two wasn't great, doesn't mean that they're a bad person. So thank you for that. It shows respect.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I say this all the time. I would never remarry her, go through that again, but I would not undo the 5 years that I was married to her, because I am who I am today, and I value what I value today, and I have the principles that I have today because of having gone through that. And one of my favorite quotes from Steve Jobs is, you cannot connect the dots looking forwards, you can only connect them looking backwards. When I was in that marriage, and it was horrible, and it was absolute hell, and it was scary and screaming and fighting and horrendous, like, I never would have thought that I would look back and honestly see that through the eyes of being so grateful for it. And even my wife now, Ashley, who's amazing, she went through a horrible marriage as well. And we have these conversations, even though we would never, you could not give me the world and I would not go through that again. We would not trade it for the world. And I used to hear people say that, and I used to think it was bogus and like, yeah, whatever, that sounds nice. No, it is. When you go through it, and if you can really draw the lessons from that and say, what can I learn from this? Why did I go through that? How can I make sure that doesn't happen again? And who would I be today having not gone through that? It gives you a whole new lens to view life through. Whole new lens to view life through.
Okay, so I recently went through a horrendous thing in my life, and I'm still not there yet. It's a business thing. My whole business closed in 2020, and it was pretty traumatic for me. I definitely am learning lessons. I definitely am seeing that there was a lot of things I need to learn in the process, but I'm still not grateful. And it's been 2 years. Like, how long did it take you for you to say, this worst part of my life, I'm now grateful for? How many years did that take?
I would say it took, when it really hit home was actually when I got remarried.
Mm,
And I realized, gosh, I'm gonna get emotional here. I'm not supposed to be a man and cry, but no,
whatever.
my wife now, it would be impossible to appreciate her to the level I do without having gone through what I went through. It would be impossible. Like, the way that she loves me, I could not appreciate that. It would be impossible to appreciate it to the level that I do, having not gone through what I went through. And I think that's where the lessons really started to come in. And in your situation, whether it's a new business that becomes successful or that business closing down, once again, connecting the dots, looking backwards, you can't connect them looking forward, saying, had that not closed down, it would not have led me to this point in my life. I do think it's once you get far enough down the road that you can connect those dots and be like, I am who I am today because of that. So for me, from the time we got divorced to remarried, it was relatively quick. I think it was about 2 years between getting divorced and remarried. So I'd say is right in about that time frame.
So one more thing to say though before moving on. I think what you said is really important. You weren't able to look back on the journey and connect the dots until like the phoenix had burned and you were starting to rise again, right? Like
Mhm.
when the phoenix was burning, when you were recovering from your divorce and whatever else, that's not when it felt good. It didn't feel good until the new rebirth started. So the death process, what I'm hearing, the death process, no matter what's dying, whether it's a relationship, a business, whatever, or a person, that part is not expected to be
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yep, 100%, because even when I had got over the initial pain of the divorce and I had started moving on and I was finding myself and I was living in an amazing place and I had great neighbors and just started to really find myself again, I was just so happy to be happy again. I wasn't grateful for my marriage at all, like my previous marriage. I was just happy to be happy, to feel like I can find myself again. I can set new goals. I can be optimistic about the future. But as far as being genuinely grateful for that experience, it really wasn't until I got married again. Like it
Got
really
it.
wasn't. I was super happy. I was grateful that I was out of that situation. I was grateful that I was moving on, that the pain was gone, that I was finding myself. But as far as just that genuine gratitude of I would not give that up for the world is when I met my wife, started dating her, got married, and still, like we've been married actually 3 years, so not super long still, but 3 years next week. We've been married, but still like the way that she'll talk to me or the way that she'll support me. Like I texted her about the podcast today. She said, "Go kill it, babe. You're so amazing. I love your passion." Like that, like I never heard those words before. And had I not gone through that, I would have been like, that's to be expected. That's what a wife's supposed to do. A wife is supposed to support you and be happy for you. But when you go through a marriage where you genuinely feel like they're not, and they're suffocating you and they're pushing you down, and when they see you rising up and having more self-esteem, it's a threat to them. So they pull you back down. Having gone through that, you have a whole nother level of appreciation when it's like, I'm leaping off a building, going for these new ventures, going after it. And not only is she okay with it, but she's like, I got you, even if you fall. Versus in a toxic relationship, you feel like they got arrows flinging at you that you're trying to avoid as you go off on these new ventures.
Mm. Hmm. What would you say to someone who is realizing that they're in a relationship like that? How long did it take you before you saw it and you got out?
I saw it really early on,
Mm.
um, but a lot of it was my own self worth. I knew that the way I was being treated was wrong. I knew that this wasn't okay, but I came into the marriage with my crap, my low self worth, my depression, my feeling like a cancer. And so that was already there. And so it took me to switch and start to see my own self worth, that I was like, oh, this isn't good. Or like, not that I knew it wasn't good, but it was I need to make a change. Like
Mhm.
I just realized I'm not excited about the future with this person. I'm not optimistic about the future with this person. I don't want the future with this person. That's really started to change. And then I just really realized as I started to emotionally cut off a little bit more and didn't let her pull me down. When I would set goals and accomplish them and not let her pull me down. When people would say good things about me and she'd be like, well, they don't know this and this and this about you, not letting that pull me down. It was really for me, it was finding my own self-worth, my own self-love first, but I saw that it was bad from the very beginning. But then it's taking the action of I've got to make a change, because 5 years from now, what will I have wished I did today?
Hmm. Interesting. Do you think that's why you chose her? You opted into that relationship because your self-esteem was low and you were looking to validate that, or that's what you knew, or what do you think?
Yes, and the more that I've learned about like personality disorders and different things like that, so I'm very codependent. I don't want to rock the boat. I want everyone to be happy. I want
Welcome to
people.
the party. Welcome to the
Yeah,
party.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like that's in my nature and I love it. It can be a huge blessing to have more compassion, to connect with people, but it can be a huge curse. Like it can end you up in a horrible, horrible marriage. So that's who I am. She was more the narcissistic, everything you do is for me, controlling, like all those things. So the more that I've learned about this is the reason that those two people attract to each other is because they're perfect for each other. As a codependent person finds a narcissistic person, the codependent person loves giving, 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 make them happy. Narcissistic person loves taking, 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 taking. And so it works for a little bit. And that's why it's nuts. But those two people end up together is because of that dynamic. But when it starts to change and when it starts to fall apart is when this codependent person does anything that the narcissistic person would view as like quote unquote taking from their bucket. Like you just did that and it wasn't for me. Like I used to go work out at 5 o'clock in the morning before she got up, anything like that. And she used to tell me, you were choosing working out over me. You were choosing working out over your eternal companion. Like those are the words that she would use because she's like, you're putting that before me. I'm like, well, when am I supposed to go? Well, anytime that you can be with me, you should be with me. And if you're not, it's because you're putting those things ahead of me. And at first, you believe it. You totally believe it.
I think it plays on the codependent personality's desire to not be selfish. Oh, I can't be selfish. If I do something for me, then I will be viewed as selfish. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%. And when you're with that narcissistic person, they reaffirm that. Like you're told how selfish you are, how self-centered you are. And yeah, if you're trying not to be a selfish person and be selfless, like I always used to tell myself, because we hear all the time, be the change you want to see in the world.
Mhm.
So in that relationship, I was like, okay, I'm going to just give more. I'm going to be less selfless. And you just become more and more and more of a doormat. And
Yeah.
you start to lose more and more and more of your identity.
I want to share that the Velcro to codependency doesn't have to be narcissism. There is the autism spectrum disorder, ASD or Asperger's as it used to be called. If you're really high functioning, a lot of people don't realize that people that they're in relationships with have this thing going on, the way they're wired. And oftentimes it looks like narcissism, but it truly is they're unable to connect. They're unable to see anyone else's viewpoint beyond their own. So just want to add that from personal experience that it's not always narcissism. Not saying it is any easier if it's something else, but it could be something else as well.
I love that. I had never heard that before. And I absolutely love that. And yeah, I don't believe that, yeah, codependent and narcissistic people always end up together, but it is the path of least resistance for a lot of people to end up there because yeah, they fit perfectly together.
Yeah, yeah. The over accountable and the under accountable, and it's nice
Mhm.
Velcro. So then you start to pull away, and you said you were emotionally good and you didn't let her pull you down. That is you saying, I'm detaching from this codependent relationship. Like if it's a puzzle, right? So you're saying, I'm going to be whole instead of being attached to this puzzle piece. And she flips out, right? How long did that last? Were you able to be with her at all and stay in that whole place?
I would say yes, we were able to. It was probably a couple of years of that because what it is like that pulling away and that emotional shutting off, it's all of a sudden I'm responsible for my own happiness. 100%. Dang. And guess what? That means she's responsible for her own happiness. And you start not feeding into that. I'm responsible to make you happy. That really, really upset her because, of course, I am her husband. I'm her eternal companion. It is my job to show up and to make her happy. And she uses all sorts of religious crap and stuff to convince you of that and makes you feel like garbage. And I would get sucked back into it from time to time. But that's really what kind of the emotional disconnect was is I'm responsible for my happiness. You're responsible for yours. We come together and we can make each other happier, but I need to be whole as an individual. You need to be whole as an individual. So we were still able to quote unquote coexist. We were still, honestly, even up until we got divorced, we were great friends. As long as there was something distracting us from each other, from our relationship, we were great. And that's why our divorce actually shocked a lot of people is because we would go out fishing and we would go on trips and we were always doing things. But that great therapist that I had mentioned, that's what she helped me realize is like you are distracting yourselves from each other. You're distracting
Wow.
yourselves from the relationship. You're great friends, you're great roommates. Anything beyond that, it's empty and it's not there. So that's why you don't want to go there. And that's where the chaos exists. So you're up here. We'll be good friends. We'll go fishing. We'll go on trips, this, that, and the other. But on an emotional level, there's nothing there because you can't go there. And that is what started to cause the unraveling. Is like I'm whole. I'm good as a person. I'm responsible for my happiness, which means you're responsible for yours. And that did not go over super well.
I so appreciate that. Let's talk about, you mentioned when we just talked earlier about depressive tendencies, that they don't end, that they don't, like, you don't magically get fixed, that they get managed instead. So talk to me about that. And then also you mentioned that you were afraid your wife would react like your ex. And so it kind of caused you to do different behaviors in your relationship? Talk to us about that.
Yes, that's a great question. So this is something that to this day I am still having to learn. That for me, depression is just not solved. It's not an injury that you just come over and you rehab yourself from. Like it's not. It's not like the marriage where it's end, you sign the papers, it's done, it's over. So many times I have thought that I've got it whipped. I love myself. I love my job. I love what I do. There's no way I'm getting, like, I have an amazing wife, amazing kids. We have a viral Instagram reel. Like, what's there to be depressed about? But it still will come up and kick my butt. If I'm not doing those things, the daily meditation, the breath work, the gratitude, connecting well with others, like something I do right now that helps keep me on a super high plane is I go to lunch every single week with my dad, just connecting with people close to you and talking about exactly what's going on. Because a lot of times in our jobs, like this job, I'm showing up for other people. I go home and I try and show up for them. And not very often are we like showing up for ourselves and talking about ourselves and what we're going through. And all these little things just start to build and build and build and build. And then one day the depression hits and it can get deep and it can get dark. And even in January, I went through a super, super depressive funk and just was super dark and couldn't get out of it. And it just was once again that reminder that, Ryan, this is something that's to be managed. And it honestly doesn't take a lot to manage it. But what you do need to do is be consistent with it. Like if I will just consistently do those things, it typically can be managed. It's never completely away. But for me, I can have bummer days. I can have off days. I can have down days. I'm good with that. All of us have those. And I need to be okay with that. What I'm not okay with is I'm the cancer. I need to get out of here. I'm a burden to my wife. I'm a burden to my kids. They'd be better off without me. When those thoughts start coming in, it's like, yeah, something's going on and I need to start doing more and I need to be more consistent with those little daily things, those little daily tasks that keep me on a higher plane. Which another one that I do is, man, watch what's going into your mind. That's what your brain lives on. It's like the food that you give your brain. Open up Instagram, open up Facebook, flip on the news, and you're going to be giving your brain a whole lot of toxic garbage, and that's what it's going to be living on. So I am very adamant about the podcasts I listen to, the books that I listen to, the books that I read, and constantly I want those words going through my brain. And even just before I got on this podcast, I'm listening to one of my coaches and mentors, one of his recordings. Just I am obsessed with putting those things through my mind, even if I learn nothing from it, just to keep my mind on a higher thinking plane.
I love it. Absolutely love it. I was reading last night this book about health and nutrition, and the author's perspective was it's not about every once in a while having junk food. Like that's not the problem. The problem is people who have a lot of junk food don't get the good stuff. So it was a completely different way of thinking. It's not about the junk food harming you. It's about the good stuff being really good for you. And it reminds me of what you just said. It's not about solving depression. Depression isn't solved. I love that quote from you. Depression isn't solved. It's managed. It's not about getting rid of the bad stuff. It's about just making sure you're always feeding your brain. Lunch with your dad every week. How adorable is that? And I love the perspective of I am just giving. If you're a coach or a trainer or anything that works with people, you're constantly giving, and you need to spend some time getting back. And no one's going to do that for you. Like you have to say, what can I do? I'm going to schedule time with my dad every week, and I'm just going to vent to him. I love that. So many good principles in there.
Yeah, and I think about, I mean, when you talk about giving, even if it's not your career, look at all the women. Like I work so much with women, and how many of them have multiple kids, stay-at-home moms. Husband goes off, he has his outlet with work and the buddies and his hobbies and stuff like that, but she's home with the kids all day and gives and gives and gives. And it's so hard because she loves it. She loves giving. My job, I love coaching. Like we love doing that, but we also need to step back and make sure that we're not just emptying our cup into other people without giving ourselves a chance to refill it. And I was blessed with the most amazing parents that God could have given me. And he did. And it's literally my dad every single Monday texts me, says, hey, what day works this week? And he comes up here to the gym, picks me up, and we go to lunch and spend an hour and a half together talking. And I told him, I was like, and it's not even that I'm dumping heavy, hard stuff on him. It's just talking. What's going on? How's your life going? It's just like normal conversations. But just doing that, I just notice it refills my cup so that I can come here and I can give to others as well.
You really do have something special in that relationship with your dad. It sounds like you recognize that, but that usually is not what we hear. And so that gives me like a point to aim for. I want to be that kind of mom, you know? That's
Yeah,
the coolest. Give your dad a hug for us. He sounds amazing.
I will. He's amazing. There's a reason that he's my dad because yeah, he's
That's the
exactly what I
coolest.
need.
That's the coolest. All right, so we've got some giveaways for our listeners. So let's see. First from Ryan, core fitness coaching. Will you talk about that? And there's a Habits for Humans. You get $100 off any of our coaching programs. Talk to us about core fitness coaching and how that works.
Yeah, I'd love to. So we're located in far west in Utah. So if you're near us, we do in-person coaching. We do group coaching where you come in and we work out in small groups. We do one-on-one coaching, but we also do online coaching. We actually work with people all over the country now, where you have an accountability coach that helps you dial in your nutrition, your mindset habits, your fitness that works for you. We're not a cookie cutter program. We really tailor the program to the individual. So we say, where are you at? What are you doing? And where do you want to go? So we don't care if you're working out 6 days a week or no days a week. That's where you're at. That's where you start. And we're all about progression over perfection. It is actually very damaging in the health and fitness world to pull those full 180 degrees overnight because they're not sustainable. So it's like, okay, what's the 1 degree? What's the 1% we can improve this week and make it sustainable? And you work with that on your coach. So we have nutritionists on our staff that message you every single day, check in, see how you're doing. You do a weekly Zoom call or a weekly FaceTime call to check in. What are your struggles? What are your challenges? What are we going to be doing the next week? And so that way we tailor to the individual. We give you the accountability, but more than anything, we give you the connection. Like anybody can teach you how to track your food, how to eat right, how to work out. You can Google it and find great stuff for a heck of a lot cheaper than what you're going to get here. But it's a connection, having somebody that actually cares, goes above and beyond for you and your personal situation and helps you find those solutions. So whether you're a career-driven woman or you're a stay-at-home mom or you're somewhere in between, we meet you where you're at and find something that's not just going to be like a 6-month fix, but a lifetime fix so that this is a sustainable practice that you can do and you're never feeling deprived, restricted, or overwhelmed.
Everything you're saying is right up my alley. I don't believe in before and after photos because before and after photos just make you feel guilty about yourself when you regain the weight 3 months later. So I love that everything you do is habit-based. Everything that you do is slow. The slow cut is the shortcut. You're speaking my language, Ryan. I'm loving everything that you're doing. So
And I'll just say real quick, if you do have an awesome before and after photo, because we do before and after photos here, and if 3 months later you gained it back, it's because what you were doing wasn't sustainable.
yes,
That's
yes.
what I tell people is like, once you have that cool before and after photo, which we have hundreds of them, we're not going to have you change anything. You're going to continue to do what you were doing. And people, it's so easy to do a cool before and after photo. I'll put you on 500 calories a day with broccoli, chicken, rice. And yes, it's going to happen, but it's not sustainable. So if someone has a cool before and after photo and they go right back to where they were, it's because it wasn't congruent and aligned with their current life and what they were able to realistically sustain. So that's what we're all about, the sustainability, so that you don't have that cool before and after photo and 3 months later gain it back. Because if you do, it wasn't sustainable. So you reassess, replan, and then you head out on it again.
I love it. There should be no after, right? It's just the forever from there on out.
Like we don't even talk diets. Diets are temporary. A diet has a start date and a stop date. With us, we do nutrition. It's nutrition. How do you go out to eat? How do you do a cheat meal? How do you do desserts? How do you do holidays? How do you do vacations? That is life. It's not a diet. It's nutrition, and we're all about sustainability.
You're speaking my language, Ryan. Thank you for that. We also have a giveaway from our sponsor, Card Salad. Go to habitsforhumans.com and sign up for a free 7-day Eat Real Foods challenge. Also not a diet. Everything about it is eating real food. So it's 7 days of recipes done for you, shopping list, meal planning done for you for a week. Again, go to habitsforhumans.com to get that. And thank you, Ryan, so much for joining us here. Thank you for going there and sharing with your story vulnerably and showing men and women what real men look and act and sound like. So thanks for joining us, Ryan, and thanks to our listeners. This is Habits for Humans, the podcast that teaches you how to program your brain to maximize your potential. Thank you in advance also for giving us a positive review. Thanks so much, Ryan.